let me get the whole way through this story before you judge me. I'm in a hot tub in Perth, Scotland, not Australia. There's snow everywhere. I came home from Heathrow Airport on my mum's birthday, 2016, and had to tell Nicola that I'd walked away. We'd mutually walked away from a relationship with a basic salary and a company car when she was about to go on to maternity, statutory maternity pay, with our first child.
Dinner time was quiet, I can imagine.
Toughest pitch I've ever had to make in my life. I read a quote a while back, and I've mentioned it a few times. Great men plant trees they'll never see the shade of, and I can't stand by it any firmer.
Today I'm with Grant Mckenna from the Apertus Group. Hello, Grant.
How are you?
Very good, thank you, and thank you for joining us today.
Problem at all.
I've known you for a short while, and so we've met around Northamptonshire, and I've sort of seen the Apertus Group from the outside. For people listening in and people watching this on YouTube, tell us what the Apertus Group is and what you do for your clients.
So the Apertus Group is a business-to-business procurement company at its base. We started off as a energy procurement service, or an energy broker, for want of a better word, and then talking to the FDs and the customers along the way, there was an opportunity to help them in other areas, and that's what we tended to do. So when we looked at print management, which is a past background from me, automotive, all things that an FD or somebody in that position in the business would deal with. So it was almost for want of a better term, a one-stop shop for companies, and it's about selling relationships that we've built in the past, that we trust and we rely on, into businesses. So
effectively, if I put it into my own words, sort of an outsourced buying department or procurement department that somebody will use. Oh, fantastic. So what sort of products or procurement are your typical or most common things that you help source at the moment?
So energy is by far our largest sector. As I said, that's what we started with the company in 2016 with. During the pandemic, we looked into the automotive side, and we both know cars are a passion for both of us, and we looked at the automotive side. That bolted on quite nicely, fleet management for companies, and things like that, but also, as I said, the print side, so everything paper-based. We don't do this in-house. It's selling the relationships that we've built over the last kind of multiple years into the business, and we also do communications and water that bolts onto the energy side, and run side by side.
What I'd like to do is get to know your journey that brought you to Apertus Group, where you are today, and then when we'll come to sort of some of the events and your journey within Apertus Group. So you're a Northampton lad.
Yep.
Born and bred, not left the town.
One year in a holiday camp in North Wales, but the less said about that, the better.
And that's something we need to come back to. You're the youngest of four.
I am. I'm the baby. Older brother, much older, in case he sees this. And then two sisters in between us, and then me.
Yeah.
Kept going until they made perfection, really.
Absolutely, makes perfectly logical sense. And how was sort of when you look at younger years, sort of your school time, sort of how you sort of went through school?
I would like to think I'm quite an intelligent person. Academia was never my friend. I enjoyed the classes, I enjoyed the social aspect of school, I enjoyed the sports side, but until the end of, probably the end of middle school. Obviously in Northampton it was a 3-tier school system when I was a lad. And towards the end of middle school, the reports started to creep in of could do so much better if he just applied himself. And I think whether that was starting to get bored with the system or certain areas I struggled in, spelling. My spelling is atrocious. I don't believe there's anything background there. I'm just not very good at spelling. Mental arithmetic, very strong. So school was always an enjoyable time. I was a big lad. I was, don't let the lights fool you. There was ginger here one day. So I took some stick during school. I was bullied quite a bit. And then towards the end of school, I kind of bulked out and shot up, and that stopped for one reason or another. But yeah, I enjoyed school. It wasn't really ever something that I was going to carry on with at the first opportunity I could to drop it. It was always going to be the case. So.
You mentioned the academia part of it. When what were your strengths at school?
As I said, anything I could do in my head, really. My hands, anything I could pick up and do. From an early age, all I ever wanted to do was be a rugby player. From day dot. I enjoyed home economics, the cooking side, but it was always the history, science I loved until it came to putting all that down on a piece of paper. And towards the end, I'm sure, knowing how well you'll have done your research, Richard, we'll be talking about this in a bit, but towards the end of school I lost my father, and it almost became quite a convenient reason for not excelling at school, and probably to this day I still use I lost my dad in the December before I did my exams. Probably would have come out with the same exam results anyway. So it was always quite convenient, and that was always, as a child, I always think I kind of tagged along with the way to go, the easy option, kind of in the background, and I know that will surprise you, but kind of in the background and just doing the easy thing. And I think it was until I left and went into different career paths from there that I realised that actually I'm not particularly good at towing the line. I'm not particularly good at following the easy option. I think it's the safest way to say it.
You've just brought it up there. So when you lost your father, as you come into the end of your school time, that's the same sort of time. Now, when I think back to my school time, you go into the 5th year, as it was there, the head teacher for the 5th year was the careers guy. You go and sit in his office. He'll say, "What do you want to be?" And you'd go, "I want to be a fighter pilot." And you go, "Right, okay, that's the army office. Go in the RAF office. Go sign up there." I didn't have the father sort of guidance there, so I'm kind of maybe sort of relating or not, but typically, for a young lad, the father gives some of the influence of where you go. Was your father, before he passed, around to sort of give any sort of career guidance or any sort of influence on that, or with him not being there as you were reaching the end of school, do you think that had any bearing on your career choices? My
father always wanted somebody to go to university. So my dad, if I can describe my father, 5'6" Glaswegian. And as angry as that makes him sound, my upbringing was amazing. I'm very, very fortunate. My parents were besotted with each other for the whole marriage. Dad was an amazing father, amazing dad. But Dad lacked a work ethic. Dad would always take the easy option. He would always take the kind of safe route. After we were born, he was a bit of a hellraiser in his day. But I get my work ethic from my mum, luckily for us and the guys in the office. So Dad always wanted somebody to go to university, and I think that was more for Dad than for us, so that he could say somebody had been to university. I was always looking at rugby. Rugby advised to have a second career. and that led me to want to be a chef. For obvious reasons, I love food, and it was always a passion of mine to go into catering. And I remember we were going to Alton Towers. My brother was quite influential in my kind of early teens to probably 16, 17. And I remember going to Alton Towers on a bus.
Done it?
Just why would you go on a bus? And I remember talking to my brother about it, and his wife had mentioned that one of the great ways to see the world was to go into the Navy. Well, obviously that conflicted with staying to play rugby, but it was always a case. And again, convenient as it sounds, when Dad passed, I then couldn't go away. I was the only one left at home. Brother and sisters had all moved out, so I didn't want to leave Mum. Whether or not I was ever going to go or not was neither here nor there. But I stayed and became a chef on the background. I managed to score a fantastic gig at a local building society that we've got in Moulton Park, and worked there Monday to Friday 8 till 4 as a trainee chef, which was unheard of, which let me train, which let me play matches, which let me do that. So Dad didn't massively influence. He wanted us to go to university, but by that point I was hopefully going to make it in the sports arena, and if that didn't, I was certainly going to make it as a chef.
So you played amateur rugby, is that right?
Yeah, so I played rugby all through school. We know that this is a sore point. I never made a professional match. Something a good friend of mine, Ben Cohen, reminds me of quite a lot. We, from a personal point of view, I took an injury on my right knee, and it never healed to the point of being able to carry on. Position I played, from the state of my ears, I played front row. Obviously, takes a lot of strain, but it's something in business. As hard as it sounds, it's a failure. I didn't make it. So it's something I talk about with friends quite, when it's brought up, and it's something I, to a degree, I'm proud about. But I didn't make it. So it's, from a business point of view, I don't often.
Why do you refer it and use the word the failure?
Because in them days, as a 16, 17-year-old, you don't understand what a learning opportunity is, and I think that's something that that I'm very passionate about now, is that the guys understand that we try our hardest to not focus on failures in the business. But I was bolshily, if that's even a word, convinced that I was going to make it, to the point where nothing else was really. I was once told that if there's a plan B, at some point you've thought about plan A failing, and I think that still today resonates with me. So, to people I trust and the people that aren't going to take the mick, I don't mind talking about it, and people will probably say I talk about it more than I think I do. But yeah, you either. I'm a salesman. You either make a sale or you don't. You either, and I'm very black and white with things like that. And I didn't make it. How we dress that up. Unfortunate, showing off in front of people, which I may have been doing. Something caused, something led to me not making it, and that is a chapter that, as a 43-year-old business owner, I start to see things that I can learn from that. The coaching techniques, the how to take somebody that's maybe not the strongest at something and put people around them that complement them. But for the first 25 years, it's probably the first 20 of those, I see it as a failure, and that's probably a mindset fault on my part, but it's where it is.
You then went into your plan B, which was a chef in the Navy. That's one part, but you was also a bouncer.
I never, as I said, I never left for the Navy. I rocked around the UK. As I said, I spent a year in a holiday camp running the food outlets there in North Wales. Bouncer was something that kind of fell in my lap. We were looking for. I was working in catering. I was looking for an extra revenue stream at that point. I was planning on getting married at the time, and I could do with the extra money. A good friend of mine introduced me to a gentleman who had multiple bars throughout Northamptonshire, and quite a few on the infamous Bridge Street in Northampton. And I remember the interview technique. He rang me and asked me if I was big, if I could look after myself, and would I have a problem saying no to people. So obviously I ticked all three of those boxes quite quickly. And yeah, I worked on a bar on Bridge Street on Friday and Saturday, kind of in the background to see how I felt. And within probably 6 months was running a champagne bar on Bridge Street. Obviously different problems with that, rather than violence on the front door, maybe a little bit more narcotics and things like that. But yeah, I loved it. Again, social element, being paid to be there, interacting with customers. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it, and still have my best friend, the godmother of my daughter. One of my daughters is a lady that I met working on the door. So, you know, a good place for me for 6, 7, 8 years that I was doing it. And
then, after a while, about 2011, you started your first business.
Yeah, Pete McIntosh, godfather to the same said child, is he? Let me get the whole way through this story before you judge me. I'm in a hot tub in Perth, Scotland, not Australia. There's snow everywhere. Pete and I have worked our way through the majority of a case of Stella that we took with us on the first night. And Pete was telling me about this wonderful idea of this printing company, Your Print, that he owned, and how he couldn't commit to growing it, and he couldn't get through the door to people and things like that. And I just said, off the cuff comment, what you need are me. That's what you need. And we sat there for about 30 seconds just looking at each other. And then the next morning,
in a hot tub,
gazing across the bubbling water, can of Stella each, and yeah, Your Print was born. Hardest I've ever worked. Your Print had the ingredients to be massive, and the commitment from both of us. Pete worked a full-time job. I worked full-time in the business for a very small wage, as you do when you start a business, and then we would go in the evenings and produce whatever we'd sold. 100-hour weeks most weeks, and the first place I learned that there is also a word no in sales. I remember sitting down in front of a very large company in Northampton, trying to sell their print, trying to win their print, and when we shook on the deal at the end, he said, "Oh, just out of the cuff, do you do health and safety signage?" Of course, I'm like, "Of course we do." So went and bought a sign off eBay and sent it into the customer, and he approved it there and then and handed us a £9,000 order. Never printed health and safety signage in our life. So had to buy a T-shirt carousel. I don't know if you know, when for screen printing T-shirts, so they've got multiple kind of like panels for putting different colours on, and do this £9,000 order that was due in 2 weeks, and we worked every day, every night, trying to get this done. We drafted in a gentleman called Phil, whose T-shirt printer it was. So this poor guy had never really done anything to do with Your Print, and all of a sudden is doing 100-hour weeks on top of his car business to get this order out. We had no drying racks. Everything was standing up next to walls. we were in KG Business Centre in Northampton, and we literally lifted the shutter and just put these signs everywhere to dry. We wrapped them all up in brown paper, dropped them off, and the guy didn't even check them. Was just like, "Yeah, fantastic," and handed us a £16,000 order, next order. And we were like, I've seriously done us a bad turn here, because we're in bits. We're about ready to keel over, and we've now got a bigger order to deal with. So the money, we managed to borrow some money to buy some better equipment, because we were on 30-day terms, which we were lucky to get. So we had no money to buy the metal, we had no money to buy the paint, we had no money to... So yeah, I put us in a hole. But that business, that business kept us going for a good period and helped us grow. Nearly cost marriages and children, but yeah, there were times, and I look back now and I can remember Pete's face looking at me, pleading with me to just say no. But we got through it. We got through it in one piece. But yeah, so your print was great, and we had some money in the bank, and we decided to invest in the business rather than me take a proper full-time wage, and that was July 2015. Probably going to get shouted out now for kids' birthdays, and then found out that Nicola was 6 and a bit months pregnant with Lizzie, and we knew nothing about it. And yeah, it wasn't sustainable. And sat down with Pete, and we felt Phil should be part of the team by then. Sat down with the guys and said, "Look, this is the position we're in. I'm going to need to get a full-time job." Tough decision, but one of the few times Nicola put her foot down and said, "Look, this is now serious. We've got a mini Mckenna coming along. Who knows what that's going to be like?"
So Nicola being
my partner, wife. We'll say wife on here. She'll like that. And I had to go and get a full-time job, and luckily, I can never say a bad word about the guy. Pete completely understood, 100% understood. Hasn't to this day, still hasn't affected our friendship. But I took the full-time job, and it impacted. The amount of hours I was doing on the print business impacted on it. And I ended up walking away from the business, and signing over anything that I had to Pete to carry on. He'd worked hard enough in it to, for me to not take anything. There wasn't a great deal in there because we'd invested in everything anyway. But it's always, I almost feel as though, I don't want to say I feel as though I kind of dropped him royally, but he, we were just moving to the next stage, and circumstances changed. And he was always amazingly understanding about that, which will always, it'll hold a special place for me forever based on that.
If we roll back to the hot tub moment,
Yeah.
so many questions, but the one I want to ask
Don't get too graphic, Richard, please.
is when you said you need a me, what was that? What did the business need? And why did it need a you?
Somebody that could knock doors and get in front of people, somebody that could close deals. My background is cold calling. When I stopped being a chef, my first job was they put an amazing title on it, prospector. I was a cold caller. I picked up the phone, Johnson Diversity in Northampton, without name dropping, and made phone calls all day, every day, because it was the weakest area of my sales. I'd just gone into sales, and if I could sit somebody down, I'd sell to them every time. Sitting them down was the problem. It was approaching them. It was having that kind of belief in what we did. So, as per everything in my life, if I'm not good at something, I'll just, apart from dieting, we'll just keep going. So I went into prospecting with Johnson Diversity, really good company. And that's what Pete lacked. Pete's an accountant. Pete's amazing at what he does. And for an accountant, sorry to all accountants, look straight in the camera, very funny, which is obviously quite unusual. But from our point of view, he just couldn't close a deal. He couldn't get in front of somebody. He didn't have the ability to pick up the phone and say, do you know who we are? This is what we can offer you. Can I drop some stuff into you? And that was what he was lacking. And at the time, that's what I was doing for a national company. I was basically a sales manager, driving throughout the UK, selling paint of all things.
So he went from a guy with a business but wasn't able to sell, his strength wasn't selling, to working with somebody who basically sold everything and sold with cherries on top as well.
And we made the perfect partnership. I would sell, and Pete would understand what it took to make what I'd sold a reality, and would basically run the business. I was almost the sales director without any consequence what happened behind, because I didn't have to get involved in that the same way Pete never had to get involved in the sales side of the business. So yeah, we made almost the perfect person. But you know, it was fantastic while it lasted. Again, to this day, I still miss the camaraderie and having almost somebody on my level to just talk and run stuff past. And I think that's why, I'm sure you'll come on to it, I think it's why I surround myself with so many people that on a personal basis I get on very well with, that are outside the business, to be able to bounce ideas and bounce trials, tribulations off, that sort of thing.
So the job that you took once you found out you had a baby on the way?
So I'm certainly not naming this company. I went to work for an energy broker.
Okay.
I have to say, without him, I wouldn't have what I've got now. And Nicola made me realise that a few years back. So I'm a great believer in everything happens for a reason, and that 4 months started on the 4th of January 16 and left on the 15th of April, not that I remember it clearly. And those 4 months piqued my interest in the energy industry, and showed me how it could run, shall we say. And that was it. So, you know, they were very good to me. They gave me a company car. They, you know, some things I've changed in the way that Apertus runs. You know, people don't come in with a completely blank canvas now, because everybody's in an energy contract. So when you can build an amazing relationship, you can get them, you know, you can create a want, you can close a deal, and then they show you that their bill isn't actually up for renewal until 2024. So you know, so you have to kind of, I think, bring people on with an element of spoon feeding some business across, because people just lose interest. So I went to work for them. It didn't work out. One reason or another, it didn't work out. And I came home from Heathrow Airport on my mum's birthday, 2016, and had to tell Nicola that I'd walked away. We'd mutually walked away from a relationship with a basic salary and a company car, when she was about to go on to statutory maternity pay, with our first child.
Dinner time was quiet, I can imagine.
Toughest pitch I have ever had to make in my life. Because I knew I could do it. I knew I could go self-employed again. I knew I could make a success of it. And I knew Nicola trusted me 100%. But there was somebody else, we were responsible for somebody else. And I can never understand the maternal instinct of what she was feeling at the time, you know, thankfully, because I'm not strong enough to go through what she went through. But from my point of view, I knew I could make a success of it. I just had to let Nicola know I could. But obviously from your print, we'd gone for 3 years of me earning next to nothing while we grew this business. And I knew that was going to be my biggest hurdle.
Just to roll back from it, so just to be clear, this wasn't something you discussed over lunch or anything like that. Literally, you'd gone to work that morning and then came home that night having left the job that you'd taken.
I had an inkling that the conversation could go the way it went, and I brought that up. But I was 100% going to that meeting with the anticipation of being able to not smooth anything out. It's almost poor performance related, really, issue. And I have to also remember that at that period I was still at Your Print to a point, so I was still helping out. So that will have taken hours away. But I had every intention of making it work, and within 3.5 minutes of the meeting knew that wasn't going to be the case. So then spent the next couple of hours scribbling down on a napkin what the plan was. Didn't have a business name, didn't really understand what I was going to do. And there are certain people that come along in your life that that probably have a meaningful impact more than they'll ever understand. And there's a gentleman who owns a company locally, a gentleman called Jonathan Newsham. And he, at the time, I played golf with John. I'm not sure what John does is called golf, but I play golf and John follows me around. And he had introduced me to this job. And he was my second phone call when I left the meeting to say I don't know what I'm going to do. And at the time, in the energy industry, you have things called aggregators, which are companies that have got relationships with huge energy companies, and for a percentage of your commission, they will let you buy under their name. And John worked for one of them at the time. And by the time I got back, I needed to come up with a company name. I needed to register a company, and he had already set my pay schedule and my commission structure up with this aggregator so that we could start to create money. And the company that he works for are no longer around, or worked for are no longer around. And he put business through under my umbrella that had come direct. It was a referral based, and I closed deals, but he helped out so much. And I think at some point, and I hope I don't get him in trouble, I think at some point he also lent me my first month's wages to try and ease the burden on Nicola of what we were going through. And you just can't repay that. You can only pass that forward. You can only help other people with that. You can't sit John down and, it would appear whenever anybody's really good to me, they become godparents to my children, because he's godfather to Freya, my youngest. But he's like a brother. If you look at us, we're probably like brothers anyway. But he didn't have to do any of that. There was no real advantage to John. Yes, there's a business advantage in the fact that he's got another broker working alongside him, but I certainly don't ever believe that was the reason he did it. And I think that's what we saw massively a few years ago, people being that person. And let's be fair, I think now it's gone completely the other way, but he was, and to this day is still a massive part of what we do at the Apertus Group. And just a genuine, amazing person.
And what was the first few years for the Apertus Group like then? Pre-pandemic, because I think the pandemic will probably need its own little section.
I hardly noticed it, Richard, to be fair. It was good. We learn by our mistakes. We used to take our commission on a upfront basis. So when a piece of business was signed, we would be paid what it was worth to us, minus the commission to the aggregator, almost just after it went live. and it's a great way for cash flow, but there's no stability in it. We moved to another aggregator when John left his role, and they stitched us properly. They would pay whenever they wanted to. Basically, it was a little bit Wolf of Wall Street. They were driving around in £150,000 cars, coming to meetings on substances that you certainly wouldn't expect a business to be running on. And they took us for a chunk. They took us for about 21,000, I think. In them days, I was on my own. Big chunk that you expect to be paid monthly, and that was a strong lesson. And at that, when that was all of our commission built into one aggregator, we had all our eggs in one basket. And I remember sitting in our little office in Moulton Park, talking to the gentleman that owned the building, and him saying, I help businesses like you. This is something we should probably have a further conversation about. And I've got no qualms of saying, he helped and continues to help to this day. But it's not just financial. Obviously, it was at that point. But he's almost a father figure in business, and he knows how to manage me. We've had a conversation in the past. I had a fantastic business idea, and I drove all the way up to see him in Derbyshire with this amazing. I'd even drawn on paper exactly what I wanted, and so that we don't have to bleep anything out of this, he challenged it, shall we say, quite hard, and just tore it apart. And I've been in business for myself best part of 10 years, and he absolutely hammered it. So basically picked out a very small hole in the very first part of it wasn't a pitch, but it wasn't also drawn on a fag packet. And he kind of picked at the first little bit, and man alive did the back end fall out of it. So I left Derbyshire with my tail between my legs, and I got in the car and I rang Nicola, and she said, how did it go? And I told her, and I got quite emotional. It's an area of the business that I know we'll talk about in a bit that I'm very passionate about, and I got quite emotional on the way back. And by the time I was in the car on my own for 2 hours on the way home, and by the time I got home, my whole outlook had changed. I could see where he'd come from. I could see that what he was actually saying to me was, this first bit's not right, so then everything that you've planned behind it isn't right. Let's get the first part right. I think you're onto a good idea. So by the time I got back, it had developed, it had changed, it had morphed into this. And I always remember him sitting down and saying to me, that's the one thing in life that you have that I don't. He's a very analytical person. He's very successful, very successful. So again, it's where we differ. But the ability to know it's a great idea, but that the planning in it was just all over the place. And by the time I got home, in my head, I'd moulded that into the 2.0 version to go back to him. So that's future plans. But so
he's become a business angel for you in that sense, and a mentor.
Yes, he's again. I seem to be very fortunate. I seem to find people that genuinely care, and whether that's about the business or whether it's about me, I think Northamptonshire, without being bullish, I think there will be a divide in Northamptonshire on feelings for Grant Mckenna. I think I think that's a safe way to put it. I think I've been very lucky in the past to have people that I genuinely believe care about me and care about what we are trying to do, and the fact that we like to cause trouble and we cause ripples and we change the way things are done. We don't cold call in an industry where everybody, as soon as anybody that owns a business that watches this will know as soon as their energy contracts are up for renewal, because the phone doesn't stop ringing. If you move into a new premises, your phone doesn't stop ringing. We don't do that. Ours is all about building relationships. Apertus stands for open, honest and frank. And I think that's me to a T. I have a face that can't hide how I feel. My mouth normally backs that up within a second or two. But I've been very lucky in the fact that we've got these people that I can go to that don't mind taking 5 minutes of their time to just hear what I'm going through. And I think that's something that has been massive 18 months ago. And now all of a sudden, I put in a post on LinkedIn, now all of a sudden that we've gone away from the pandemic to a degree, I think we've lost it. It's a dog-eat-dog world again now. And everybody's pockets are being pinched. But those people are still there. They still, you and I can still pick up the phone and have a conversation about anything. And whether or not you would realise that that was just what I needed, or for somebody to tell me, actually, Grant, that's a horrendous thought. That's important, and that's where we've been very lucky. And Marcus, the gentleman that came in, has been instrumental in the success that we've had as a business.
So that's something that's quite persistent in many businesses that tend to be more successful. They have a mentor or business agent or somebody there who's been there, done it, and is able to take that step back and look in and just scratch at those little bits and just see and just guide that business owner based on their own experiences where they've had those things, those threads that have come apart.
And I think it's about not being too proud to admit, this guy's got a business that dwarfs ours, a business success history that if you're too proud to tap into that, you're doing the wrong thing. And having that, to sit and just listen to somebody that's trying to help, and I'll do that all day long. Tap into successful people. I drove to Rochdale once to spend an hour with a successful business guy from Rochdale. Told him that I was in the area, could I pop in and see him? Drove all the way there just to see him. And his business, I have no qualms in saying, was almost the business formula that the Apertus Group now runs to. The multifaceted business that helps across the board. But I went up to spend an hour with Lee and ended up spending the whole afternoon with him. And he, his outlook on letting things go and the way customers should be treated and the way suppliers should be treated is something that still, runs through the Apertus Group today.
We then hit the pandemic, and we're coming out of the pandemic, and energy prices are mental. The two key parts of your business being energy and cars.
Yeah.
So how have the past few years been?
We joke about the fact that if you want to drive the price up of your product or the availability, just let the Apertus Group start to sell it. The way in which we run our business now, we're paid. Any brokers will tell customers that they work for nothing on their behalf, and they're paid by the supplier. Technically, it's true, but they don't work for nothing. Nobody works for nothing these days. We put an uplift on our clients' contract, so we may be offered their price at 35 pence, and we will sell it to them at 35.5 pence, and the supplier will then pay us. That's how it runs. From a point of view at the start of the pandemic, we're paid on usage. Everywhere shut. But everybody still needed us because their energy, how do they pay their energy bills when I run a hotel that's not bringing anybody in? So we kept everybody on for the first lockdown through furlough, and it nearly closed us. Anything we had in the bank went. I remember doing a LinkedIn post as I locked the front door. I'd seen John Thorpe do one. And we all know John, charismatic crooner, you know. And I'd seen him post, and I thought to myself, well, that's powerful, I'll steal that. So I did. Building obviously looked a little bit different in the background. He was in his Tesla, I was in my 1 Series or something at the time. And I remember leaving it thinking, it's only 2 weeks. What's the issue? We signed a local hotel on the 1st of April. So lockdown, was it 23rd of Feb? We signed one hotel at the start of April, and we didn't sign another piece of business until back end of August. Wow. And yet we were still paying everybody's wages. We were still trying to help everybody out, because the person we deal with invariably was still in the business enough to be able to forward on contract problems and stuff like that. And I've always wanted the Apertus Group to be more than just a broker. So we take on customer service issues, we take on billing issues, and that's part of our service. There's no invoice for that. That's our commissions already paid for that. And it tested us. Nicola and I, Nicola gave birth on the, oh God, I'm glad I decided to choose a date. I'm really glad I decided to do that. Come on, Grant.
We need to find out Nicola's email to send this to us.
So Nicola was about to give birth. Let's play safe. Was about to give birth to Freya, our second child, and lockdown with a new baby. We were planning on moving house, and we lived in Nicola's house she bought when she was single, on her own. 2-bed, 2 up, 2 down house in St James, and I tried to run the business off the dining room table, and trying to do everything on Zoom with a 3-week-old baby in the background was hell. Nicola at the start of March trying to take the kids into the garden so that I could do a Zoom call for the business. It was, it's a testament to Nicola again. We'll just go above and beyond to make this a success. Do you remember Connor used to do a round table? Connor Slasberg used to do a round table thing. I was on one of those, Adam Kaplan, with him. And he, I remember we were all logged in, we were going through the thing, and then Adam Kaplan, who's a long-term friend of mine, said, can somebody hear music in the background? And it was Izzy playing Wii Bowling. What do you do? I had to go and do the rest of the interview haunched over on the kitchen work surface, because that's what you did. You made it a success. But I thought it was only going to be for 2 weeks, and it was in that period we decided to look at the car side a bit more, and an off the cuff decision. Do we look at? I'd made quite a few good friends during lockdown in business from people that I felt were in the same boat as me, and reached out. And one of the gentlemen that I got very close to during the lockdown was Scott Norville, Silverstone Fleet Management. And I got chatting to him, and he obviously excels at 2, 3, 4 year leasing. And an off-the-cuff decision between myself and one of the sales guys, let's look at how we do something different. Let's do 12 month. Let's just keep it at 12 month. We don't know what people are going to want to do coming out of this. Are people going to want to commit to this? So let's do. And we did 53 cars in the first 3 months. And that basically got us through lockdown. And, when we went into the second lockdown, some places stayed open, which helped. But, November last year, the energy prices spiked and it put suppliers out of business. And they've all got our commission. Our commission's built into these suppliers. So that's gone. So we're having to re-sign customers at a massively inflated rate because we've done our job properly and got them a fair rate 6 months previous, but that contract's now null and void. So we're almost doing the work again to get our money back, and it's literally been one kick after another, and people see the face and beard of the Apertus Group. The team we've got in the office now, I'll give her a shout out because she's been with me through the whole thing. Young Katie, who's our administrator on the car side of the business. Katie has seen this business on its knees and comes into work every single day with a massive smile on her face. And she bleeds the Apertus Group. She's the most loyal person. But that's been bred. That's come from their input as well. Because I know how it feels to be the MD and know you've got no choice but to get up every day and face it head on and deal with the continuous beatings that owning a business dishes out. But these guys, yes, they get paid sometimes, but there's plenty of opportunity for them to be like, Grant, this is a you problem, not a me problem. But that's never the case. That's never the case, and I think that's what's got us through. That and a lot of hard work. And I know you hate the premise of it, but luck. And I know you don't like that, Richard. But I made a decision 4 years previous to move into an office in a building owned by a certain individual. I made a decision to join a golf club that John Newsham was playing at. That's 20 miles away from where I live, not the local golf. You make your own luck wholeheartedly by the repetition and the effort that you put in. I don't know if we'd have got through without certain elements of a chance meeting. But I think it's about making sure that those chance meetings, you get everything you can out of them.
But would you feel that taking that luck, so you just said a moment ago that it feels like a constant kicking over the last few years. Some people simply aren't made to take those kickings, and some people just keep picking themselves up, dusting off and going forward. So is it, how much of it is luck and how much of it is bloody minded and determination, and the looking over your shoulder back at who's at home that you're providing for?
I think one of the things that we need to remember is that we made this decision. We made the decision to be a business owner, and there are people that aren't cut out for it. And like you said in your post in your car outside Which that time, they've made the decision to not understand what we go through, and for that they can't be held accountable. We can, and I think there's something slightly tapped in the people that do it. Let's be fair, you and I, we're certainly not normal. And I think from our point of view, it's there is no plan B. There is no choice of failure. And it's about giving, I hark back onto my upbringing. My upbringing was amazing, but I had goaler trainers. Silly things that stick in my head. My upbringing was amazing, and we went on holidays every year to family. And it's about what I deem as success, and what I deem success to be is for other people. Don't get me wrong. I want the nice cars. I want the nice house. I want one of those massive tree houses. I want a house big enough to have a big tree house. I keep thinking I want a barbecue in it, but at some point I'm going to burn the house down. It's about I've wholeheartedly gone into this, and I now have a team of people who is expect the wrong word, who look at me to guide this ship.
They rely on you to pay their wages. Exactly. And keep their mortgages paid and stuff. And
from my point of view, that's the biggest compliment they could give me. So I can't fail for them. I also can't fail for Nicola. Material things to Nicola are neither here nor there. She's the most unmaterialistic person I've ever met. But But the girls, you know, I want them to have the upbringing I had from a love and a family point of view. I'd also like them to have Nike Air Max trainers when they want them. I'd like them to see the world. I'm not particularly well travelled. You know, I'd like to be able to. The memories I have of childhood are fantastic. I'd like to be able to make memories that have got a blue sea in the background, and unlimited amount of beer on tap in a plastic cup. You know, I think, and I don't know that after this long, if I'm employable anymore. So it has to be a success.
You brought up social, and now you're developing quite a following, I'd say, for Moaning MD. The
people just wind me up.
You do a regular video on LinkedIn where the events that have happened recently to you doing that recording, just you almost Piers Morgan it. So what's happening with the world?
So from my point of view, I think Piers has got his place. I'm not a particular fan of Piers Morgan, but I think he's got his place. I think he asks questions that 99.9% of the world haven't got the
similarity I'm painting is he says the world's gone nuts, and pretty much,
and it has.
Yeah.
I think Moaning MD was born really. Somebody once rang me. Lazy Sales was the first one that ever. I remember getting 10,000 views on my first ever Moaning MD post about lazy sales, and it was about somebody had rang to try and sell me energy, and as a broker, we field a lot of phone calls for our clients, and we do that on purpose so that they don't get the client's phone number. Very easily got if they just did any homework, but they don't. Nobody does any homework anymore. Nobody understands the businesses they're approaching. Nobody tries to build a picture of that client before they pick up the phone. And that's why the art of cold calling, if done properly, is still so potent a weapon. And I went on a rant about a lazy salesperson who kept asking me for the contract details and the metering details when they're phoning an energy broker. And I think that was a rant. And I think the problem I have with the rants is they're exactly what is said in my head. So occasionally the language can get quite strong. But people just, I'll turn it down as it's your podcast. People just wind me up. We had one, I had one the other week that had similar numbers. Not that numbers on a viewing. I'd like to get 10,000. I think that's a good place to be. About people that just lay into people for no reason, or people that say that LinkedIn is a business post. Stop posting about your children. It's your support structure. Get a grip. If you've got time, honestly, to sit and keyboard warrior people's post about what's their why, or why on a gloomy December morning they get out of bed to do the job. Get a grip. Do something else. Run into a tree. Do something that's actually going to make a difference in the world. And then, I think that I'd post, there's a gentleman, I seem to name drop a lot. There's a gentleman on LinkedIn called Luke Manton. Luke Manton is a virtual assistant. He's got Tourette's, and he was on a Anyone Can Sing program on one of the channels. I'm a business owner, I don't get a chance to watch telly.
You don't watch Love Island?
Yeah. So he was on this. So his Tourette's are, how do I say? They're amazing. They've built an absolute monster of a person, Richard. And I mean, they've built a monster. He's amazing. And he went on this Anyone Can Sing, and he was brilliant. And at the end of it, he kissed his partner for the support, and LinkedIn the next day was all about the fact that the person he kissed was a man. Not the fact that he'd managed to build this journey with Tourette's. Nothing to do with the strength it took at any point in his life to do what he does. It was about the fact that he was a homosexual. And it infuriated me. So much so that I posted about it. And I think on the same day, there'd been a post from a paralegal somewhere that had taken a photo of a man that had attempted to commit suicide and had been talked down by her, apparently. And she had put this big post about how she was going to help him and how she was going to help him to grow, but had shoved a camera in his face for a publicity stunt. And if you can't do something good and go home and look your kids or your partner or your mum or whoever it is in the eye and know that you've just done a good deed, don't do it. Why are you doing it? Because you're going to get people that you've never met before like a post on LinkedIn. Without sounding all philosophical, I read a quote a while back, and I've mentioned it a few times. Great men plant trees they'll never see the shade of. And I can't stand by it any firmer. People do things for the right reason, and they're not the people you hear about. But you know what? I bet they make more of a difference than somebody that's taken a photo of you while you're on the floor crying because you've attempted to take your own life. And I just think, it's people like Luke. Never met Luke. Very briefly interacted on a couple of his posts. Never met him. You probably have no idea that I feel the way I do about him. But it's people like Luke. It's people like the football that happened this week. I've seen no end of social media posts about how it's not that important. But it's the people that make a difference. These are the people that are going to make the world a place where my two girls can do anything they want.
Do you think social media plays a big part? The premise or just the evolution of social media, that it's about the likes, the follows, it's the attention there. When we were growing up, there wasn't the internet. More when I was growing up, perhaps you're a bit younger than me. So if you wanted to sort of post a social media update, you got a spray can and you put it on the side of a wall.
Yep.
That was tagging, as it was, but or graffiti in everyday language. That was it, and it was there in that one place. And you'd go around, if you wanted to go and see somebody, you had to go and walk around to the house or sit in the hallway because that was where the phone was. Yeah. Now, I believe social media has made us less social, and it's more about the attention, the crave for attention from unknown people that could be driving that sort of behaviour.
Definitely, and I think from my point of view, I've always said one of the issues I see is kids having kids, people without life experiences, trying to give life experiences to children. I don't see a way. I almost don't see a way back from it. It's the until the children understand what their comments are doing. How many times will you see a youngster now pick up the phone to talk to somebody? It just never happens. I see people that will literally, they never answer their phone, and they wait to go to voicemail so that they understand what the person wants. Just answer the phone. You'll find out. That's why they put a green button on there as well as a red one. And I think social media, I joke about somebody will say something and I'll be like, PM me, babe. Because You know, it's the people that put, well, I'm in a, you know, well, here we go again, post on social media. No content, no, because they want other people to ask them what's wrong.
You're right, hun, kind of.
It's PM me, babe. And I just, I have to remember that the world is a very different place. I find it most difficult with the girls. Izzy will come into, you know, Izzy's 6 and will come in and say, how do I look, Daddy? At 6. And you almost have to check yourself, because as a father, you just off the cuff tell her she looks beautiful. But actually not, what you're actually trying to do is show her that that's not important. Does she think she looks good? You know, how do you feel about the way you look? Oh, I'm good. And that's the only thing that matters, darling. It doesn't matter what Daddy thinks. It matters how you feel. And you know, and I think that's what we lose is everybody wants fillers, everybody wants filters, everybody wants Johnny from Essex to like a post showing you seemingly with no teeth because you can't smile anymore, looking like you've not eaten a meal for you know for a month, when that doesn't portray the person that you are. And actually, when you look at you, that filter, maybe as a 43-year-old chunky, you know, smouldering fella as I am, that doesn't, you know, that's not what's attractive about somebody. And I don't see how we get back from that. I don't see how we reset that. I'm not intelligent enough, you know all the background on the algorithms.
No,
I don't see how we stop women being objects. I don't see how we stop boys treating, you know, kids treating people the way they do. You know, without a bat and a bad attitude. I don't see, you know, and that's worrying for a father of 2 girls. But social media, you know, I post social media. I've got family scattered all around the country. I post pictures of most of my pictures. If you ever go onto my social media on Facebook, are pictures of the girls. That's because, you know, they're my girls, and Freya's normally trying to set fire to something that I find quite funny. But that's what we use it for. But again, my 2-year-old can open my phone and look at photos. And I always had the outlook that I wouldn't be that parent. And then somebody at nursery with Isabel pulled me to one side and said, "It's the way the world's going. You're actually holding your daughter back by not knowing how to open an iPad, because everything's going to be done on." And they're right. They're 100% right. I can't stop this juggernaut.
But we can educate them, though, as
you can manage, exactly, and that mindset has been a change. But from a business point of view, I feel as though people are falling into that category. You know, oh well, nothing exciting's going on in my day, so I'm going to ruin their day. I'm gonna, you know, the opening line of "This isn't Facebook" honestly drives me insane. It's a business platform, and anybody that owns a business, their whole support structure is influenced and is affected by what goes on in the business. So why shouldn't they talk about it? You know, why shouldn't you talk about your wife and children? Why shouldn't I talk about the girls? And I've obviously been very lucky. I've never received one person I've had people disagree with what I've said, but nobody's ever attacked me, ever.
don't think anybody's brave enough.
No, I don't think it is.
I say that in jest, but I think a lot of it's down to you control's not the right word, but I'll go with it. Your network. You connect with people. There are people on LinkedIn, it's all about how many connections you get. Yeah. So if you open yourself up like that, then you're opening yourself up to anything. If you control and connect with people, sticking with LinkedIn as an example, with people that you have a genuine connection with, then you're less likely to get the trolls. which are effectively on there. Sticking with business for a topic then, one of the things which obviously you're very passionate about, have a strong opinion about, is entrepreneurialism and what is an entrepreneur. So it's a term that is widely used, but there's a fairly consistent pattern of when I've been speaking to various business owners, generally have a similar sort of view on what that word.
Yeah.
So asking you the question, what is an entrepreneur?
Somebody that doesn't know their job title. I don't get it. I see. Maybe I'm selling myself short. I see an entrepreneur as somebody that takes something that's not been done before and makes it or manufacture it or changes the world in some way. Elon Musk, entrepreneur. Bezos, entrepreneur. Somebody on LinkedIn who picked up a bit of cash from his dad and has decided to start let's kill two birds with one stone, start a business coaching business. That's not an entrepreneur, in my mind. You tell me, you tease me all the time with it, saying, I don't think I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I just think it's just bandied about. I once saw a post, we joked about this off air, I once saw a post about somebody who was a serial entrepreneur. And I made a joke on it about the fact that obviously it means that you can, you've invented different types of cereal, Cocoa Pops, and I got more interaction from my comment than his post. It's almost like I don't know what I want to do with myself, but I want people to know that I'm a successful businessman. So I'm going to say I'm an entrepreneur. Get off. Come on. You're not. You're trying this. You're trying this life. Stop worrying about what your job title says or what your LinkedIn bio says, and start making a difference. I don't put bolshy as a job title. I don't put, good person for a reason. But I just think it's such a bandied around term that people jump on the bandwagon because they perceive, again, it's back to social media, they perceive it shows an element of success. But apart from that, I've not really got an opinion on it, Richard.
And then with success, what is the future for the Apertus Group?
The future's changed so often. We are currently, we're in a slightly strange position at the moment within the Apertus Group that we've got our management team in place and not really a huge amount of other staff. So we've been very lucky in the fact that we've found great people to run areas of the business. But by doing that, what it's actually let me do is open up the way that the business runs and the structure of said business to more than myself. And I'm finding that quite hard at the minute. I've passed the energy side in its entirety onto a member of the team, a gentleman called Curtis. And I think the guys in the office would tell you that they're very proud of how much I've stepped back. It's killing me. But by doing that, what it's let me do is focus on an area that we've got a problem with at the moment, which is in the car side. Getting that back up to scratch, knowing full well that the energy is going to be well looked after. But I've got a dream, for want of a better term, of almost like a car palace, for want of a better. I love cars. Ben Thomas always takes to me at the fact that I drive an electric car and I'm a petrol head. I love cars and I like a certain type of car, what I would class as a retro car. And what I would actually like is a destination place full of these vehicles for people to come and choose what they want and a kind of sidecar or something like that. But that's, we need stability in the car market, which at the moment isn't there. The second-hand market is very buoyant, but has just started to tip over the edge. There was an announcement last week that they believe that the new market is starting to recover from the shortage of semiconductors that we're all bored of hearing. So that's kind of one of the areas. We've got, I've got so many plans for different parts. We've got, I want to dabble in the home side of business. But if anything's taught me, if I've learned anything over the last kind of 2 to 3 years, we just as the Apertus Group, we just need an element of stability. We just need a 12-month chance to just settle, make sure the fundamentals are still in place that we've set, and then kick on. And the signs are there. We've had a fantastic few months. The guys are working really, really well. But the future, there's lots of left field ideas, and we will, with luck, get to those. But I think next 12 to 18 months, let's just stabilise from a period. Many businesses in our sectors have gone under, and we've been very lucky. But we're working incredibly hard to ensure that there's, like you will say, that there's no element of luck to our success going forward. And it's just trying to reach those targets of perceived success. We talk about it all the time, Richard. It's about having a year's worth of wages in the bank, so that if we don't make a single sale, the guys are all looked after. I want a Range Rover. I'd look good in a Range Rover. I'd make a Range Rover look amazing, especially one of the new ones.
One might be coming up in November.
Yeah, I've seen the way you drive yours. And I just, from our point of view, the future has plenty of growth, plenty of plans. And it's hard for me to say we just need a bit of stability. Let's not, we've got through. I think we're probably in a recession. I don't think people are putting a label on that yet, because it's just another issue, another kick. Let's see what the new PM brings in, whoever that may be. But yeah, the future's strong. The future's very exciting. And yeah, it is now about focusing on that to ensure that the Apertus Group is still here in years to come.
Last 2 questions then.
Go on.
Why do you do it? Why do you put yourself through what you put yourself through in running a business as you have for the past few years, and the kicks and things that happen? Sort of, what is it in you what is your why? And then the follow on from that is, what do you want to be remembered for?
I do it because I chase success. I know I can do this. I know I can be successful at this. And it's probably about the people that have a big chunk of it is about the people that have joined that journey along the way. Everybody that's ever joined the company has taken us further down the road in some description. We've had some horrendous appointments. Recruitment people will be all over this video now. But we've had, but every single person has, whether they've taught us what we should be doing or they've taught us what we shouldn't be doing, they've helped us. So every day I get up and I just want to be better that day. And I just want, I want the girls to see that their dad, has tried his hardest to make this a success. I'm tired of making other people rich, Richard. I'm tired of making money for other people. And this, I saw an opportunity to make a difference in an industry that horrendously needs it. And I won't allow the company to fail at that. And that's why the alarm goes off at 6 o'clock every morning. That's why I basically fund a well-known local coffee shop most days. You know, that's why I do what I do. You know, family, everything, absolutely everything, and that's the feeling we have in the office as well. It's family, 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 family. You know, we look after each other outside of 9 to 5.
How do you want to be remembered?
For just being me. And I know that's a really kind of like lame answer. I can't hide how I feel. Whether I love you or I don't like you, I won't say hate. Hate's a strong word. Very few people in the world I hate. Whether I love you or we don't see eye to eye, you know exactly how I feel about you. You know, there aren't many airs and graces. There aren't many. You know, if you're not sure how I feel about you, we're okay. Because if I don't like you, you'll know it. And that sounds quite almost like a bullying, but I kind of, when you know, if we don't get on, there will have been a reason for that, and I'll let you know of that reason, and then we'll go our separate ways. But I think, you know, from my point of view, somebody that was there when people needed them, somebody that did exactly, you know, undersold, apart from that signage, and over-delivered, but just somebody that you know that was there for you when you needed them, whether that be in business, whether that be personal, whether that be you know, in any way, just somebody that did what they said they were going to do, and hopefully, you know, I look back, even with my dad's, shall we say, lack of business prowess. I look back with, you know, my dad was my hero, you know, and as a protector and as a guide, I got so much from Dad, and that's what I remember him for. You know, we brought up earlier the fact that I feel as though I've got my mother's work ethic, but I got so much from Dad, and that's kind of, you know, I want them to be able to look up and say, you know, he did his best. We've had a good life based on that.
It's been a really interesting story. Thank you for coming in and sharing.
Thank you.
And look forward to this going out. And again, I wish you every success.
Thank you very much.